Questions 11 through 20 of the 2001 Grade 10 AMC 10. Consider the dark square in an array of unit squares, part of which is shown. The first ring of squares around this center square contain 8 unit squares. The second ring contains 16 unit squares. If we continue this process, the number of unit squares in the 100th ring is. All right, so let's make a table. We've got ring number and we've got number of squares. So we have the first one, which is right there in black, right there. And around it, the first ring, they even tell you in the question, you can count it to verify, is 8 squares. These ones right there. And then the next one that's shaded a little bit lighter is this ring. And if you count those, you will see that that is 16 squares. And if you keep going, if you count the number of squares in the third ring, it'll be 24. If you count it in the fourth ring, you'll see that it's 32. And hopefully by now you see a pattern that if the ring is n, the number of squares is 8n. So therefore, if we have the 100th ring, it will be 8 times 100, which is 800 squares. And therefore the answer to number 11 is C. Suppose that n is the product of 3 consecutive integers and that n is divisible by 7. Which of the following is not necessarily a divisor of n? So we have n, and they're saying it's the product of 3 consecutive integers. So k times k plus 1 times k plus 2. And this n is divisible by 7, which means that if you divide it by 7, it will give an integer value. So that's basically what the question is telling us so far. Now they're saying, which of the following numbers is not necessarily a divisor of n? All right, so we've got a few scenarios here. Scenario 1, scenario 2, and the third scenario. The first scenario is if n, which equals k times k plus 1 times k plus 2, has k as equal to 7 or some multiple of 7, right? 7 or 14 or 21 or something like that. So that would mean that k plus 1 is 8, and therefore k plus 2 is equal to 9. So that would mean that n is equal to some number like 7 times 8 times 9, like that. And this, if you do the prime factorization, it's 7 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Okay? So that's the first scenario. And we'll come back to this later, but first we have to create the prime factors. The second scenario is one where k plus 1 is 7. So that means that k is equal to 6 and k plus 2 is equal to 8. So now n will be 6 times 7 times 8. And this breaks down into 2 times 3 times 7 times 2 times 2 times 2, like that. Oops. There you go. And then the last scenario is when k plus 2 is 7. And that would mean that k is 5 and k plus 1 is 6. Okay? And therefore n would be 5 times 6 times 7. And these prime factors are 5 times 2 times 3 times 7. Now, what they want us to do is figure out which of these, A, B, C, or D, is not possible always. Some of these are going to be possible always, but there's going to be one that's not possible always. So let's go with this. How can we get a 6 in all three scenarios? Well, 6 can be, in this scenario number 1, 2 times 3. That should do it. So 6 is possible in the first scenario. How about the second scenario? Can we get a 6? 2 times 3, there you go. And in the third one, 2 times 3. So 6 is possible. So we are good with that one. Now let's go for the next one. And I hope you kind of see a pattern. How about 14? In the first scenario, 2 times 7 would give you 14. So that's good. In the second scenario, 2 times 14 is also possible, and so is the third. So B is good. How about 21? Can we get 21 in the first scenario? 7 times 3 would do it. And 7 times 3 is also possible there. And 7 times 3 is also possible there. So 21 is good. How about 28? 7 times 2 times 2 is 28. 7 times 2 times 2 is 28. But in this one, 7 times 4 is not possible. Okay, so 28 is not possible. And just for the sake of completeness, let's see if 42 is possible. 42 would be 7 times 6, correct? So 7 times 2 times 3, okay, that's possible. 7 times 2 times 3, and 7 times 2 times 3, great. So that works out. 28 is something that is not necessarily going to be true all the time as a divisor of n. So the number 12 question, the answer is D. A telephone number has the form A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, where each letter represents a different digit. The digits in each part of the number are in decreasing order. That is, A is greater than B is greater than C, D is greater than E is greater than F, and G is greater than H, greater than I, greater than J. Furthermore, D, E, and F are consecutive even digits, G, H, I, J are consecutive odd digits, and A plus B plus C is equal to 9. Find A. Okay. That's exhausting, just reading the question. All right. So now we've got all the digits from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we have to somehow figure this out to match all the criteria in the question stem. All right. Let's start with the criteria for G, H, I, which are their consecutive odd digits. So 1 is odd, 3 is odd, 5, 7, 9. So consecutive odd digits, but they have to be such that G is greater than H, greater than I, greater than J. So I'll put 1 here, 3, 5, and 7. That matches the criteria. Okay, now let's turn our attention to the next 3. The next 3, they're saying D, E, F are consecutive even digits. So this is even, this is even, this is even, this is even. So let's just put it in that order, 2, 4, and 6. So what's left? What numbers do I have remaining? I think there's a 0 in here too that I forgot. There's 10 digits. That would be kind of hard to do 10 digits without 10 digits. All right, so what's left is I didn't put in a 9, an 8, and a 0. Okay, the only way I can put that in is like this, because they have to be matching this criteria that A is greater than B, greater than C. All right, do I fit this criteria? A plus B plus C is 9. This is A, this is B, this is C. And no. All right, no problem. Let's just try again. And that's what this question really is, just a bunch of trial and error. Let's try again. Let's do the same one. 1, 3, 5, 7. But this time for the middle numbers, I'm going to use a different, obviously, I'm not going to use the same one. Instead of 2, 4, 6, I'll use 4, 6, 8. How about that? That'll match the criteria. So the numbers that I haven't chosen are 9, 2, and 0. So the only way I can put it in is like this. Does this match our criteria of A plus B plus C is equal to 9? No. All right. Keep on going. And that's what I wanted to illustrate, that you're not going to get it right, on the very first try. You might, but if you don't get it right, no problem. Just try again. You have at least about 2-3 minutes to do this pretty quickly. Now, 1, 3, 5, 7 seems to be a dud, so I'm going to go over and try 3, 5, 7, 9 like that, which is meeting the criteria as consecutive odd digits, and they're written in descending order. And the next one, well, let's just start with the smallest ones, 2, 4, and 6. So the numbers that I have not chosen are 8, 1, and 0. So the only way I can write them in decreasing order are 0, 1, and 8 like this. So this is A, this is B, this is C. Does this match the criteria of A plus B plus C is equal to 9? And the answer is yes. Great. So what do they want? Find A. So A is 8. So the answer to number 13 is E. A charity sells 140 benefit tickets for a total of $2,001. Some tickets sell for full price and the rest for half price. How much money is raised by the full price tickets? Okay, so we have full price and half price tickets. So full price plus half price tickets. So the X will represent full price and the Y will represent half price. And they are saying that there's a total of 140 of those tickets. All right. And then they're saying that the total amount is 2001. So the full price tickets, let's just say the price is represented by P for price. So X number of tickets times the full price plus Y times half price, P over 2, like that. So that's going to be our second equations. And now we just have to solve for these. We've got 2 equations. Actually, we have 3 variables. Oh boy. So we're probably going to have to do some inspection at the end. Yeah, because we have X, Y, and P. Okay, that's fine. Not a big deal. All right, so where do you want to start here? I'm going to start first by writing it out without words. XP, YP over 2 is 2001. All right. From the first one, you get that Y is equal to 140 minus X, correct? And then I'll substitute that into here. So I have XP plus 140 minus X times P over 2 is equal to 2001. All right? So this becomes, this is a 140, sorry. Yeah, 140. Okay, so we've got XP plus 70P minus XP over 2 is equal to 2001. So this looks like XP over 2 plus 70P is 2001. Multiply through by 2 and you get XP plus 140P is equal to 4002. And factor out the P and you'll get X plus 140 is equal to 4002. And therefore P is equal to 4002 over X plus 140. So P is price and X is the number of full price tickets. Okay, so this is where our inspection comes in. Unfortunately, we don't have another equation. So we have to look at this and use the fact that P is an integer, right? Because it represents the price, full, and they even tell you that actually in the question. Price, a whole dollar amount, so it's an integer. And we also know that X is an integer because X represents the number of tickets. in particular the number of full price tickets. So since x and p are integers, we have to fiddle around with this and figure out what we can get. And we have ranges, right? We know that x is between 0 and 140 inclusive. So when you do this fiddling around, and if you want to factor out the 4002, if you feel that that helps you, you can. 2 times 3 times 23 times 29, in any way that you want. You'll notice that when x is 34, this will give you an integer value for p. P will become 23. And you can verify this because 23 is one of the prime factors. So when x is 34, it becomes p is equal to 4002 over 174. And 4002 divided by 174 is 23. So factoring out 4002 and doing a little bit of plugging in and trial and error, we'll be able to figure out the solution by inspection. Alright, so now what do they want us to figure out here? They want us to, how much money is raised by the full price tickets? Okay, full price tickets, how much money? So you'd have to take the number of tickets and multiply it by the price. So the number of full price tickets multiplied by the full price. So x times p. And we have those numbers. X is 34 tickets and the full price was $23. And therefore 34 times 23 is $782. So that's the answer. $782 would be A. A street has parallel curbs 40 feet apart. A crosswalk bounded by 2 parallel stripes crosses the street at an angle. The length of the curb between the stripes is 15 feet and each stripe is 50 feet long. Find the distance in feet between the stripes. Okay, so let's draw a diagram. We've got a curb. Here's one curb, and here's another curb. And they're saying that these two curbs are 40 feet apart. Okay? So this distance here is 40. All right? From there to there. And then what's the next part of the question? They're saying that a crosswalk bounded by 2 parallel stripes crosses the street at an angle. So something like this. 2 parallel stripes. So something like that. And the length of the curb between the stripes is 15 feet. So this is 15 right here. The length from there to there. Okay? And let's see, what else did they say? The length of the curb between the stripes is 15 feet, and each stripe is 50 feet long. So the stripe, the red line that I drew, is 50 feet in length. Find the distance in feet between the stripes. Okay, so that obviously is referring to the distance from here to here, like that. Yeah, because the other distance is 15, and that is the length of the curb between the stripes. All right. Okay, let's proceed with this. So the first thing I notice is that you've got this parallelogram type shape that I've drawn in with the red. And that parallelogram, we can figure out the area in 2 different ways. And that should help us figure out this value that I drew in green, which I will call x. That's what the question is asking us to figure out. The distance in feet between the stripes. Okay, the first way to figure out the area of the parallelogram in red is just length times width. And the length times width, so we're going to use 15 and 40. 15 is going to be the width and the length is going to be 40. So this is 600. Okay? That's one way of figuring out the area. And then the other way of figuring it out, length times width or height times base or whatever words you want to use, is using 50 and x, these two numbers. So 50 times x, where x is the height and 50 is the base. And we already know that the area is 600, so just plug that in there and you get 50x. And therefore dividing, you get 600 divided by 50 is x, and therefore x is equal to 12. So the answer to number 15 is C. The mean of three numbers is 10 more than the least of the numbers and less than the greatest. The median of the three numbers is 5. This question has a little bit of a typo. There's a number missing here. 15. So that is something that is obviously going to be very important for us to know. So the mean of the three numbers is 10 more than the least of the numbers and 15 less than the greatest. The median of the three numbers is 5. What is their sum? Okay. First, let's slow down and figure this out, explain it. So we've got three numbers. Let's call them A, B, and C. And we need to create an order. A is greater than B, and B is greater than C. And they tell us the median of these three numbers is 5. So the middle number is 5. So they've already given us one number. And then they tell us that the mean is 10 more than the least of the numbers. So the mean, which of course is the average, A plus B plus C over 3, is equal to 10 more than the least of the numbers. The least of the numbers, or the smallest number, is C. So it's 10 more than C, like that. That's the first equation. And then anything else? Oh yeah, and 15 less than the greatest. So the mean is also 15 less than the greatest. So the greatest is A, so it's 15 less than that. So those are the two equations, and we're going to have to figure out what is A and B and C, and then add them all up to get their sum. B, the good news is they've already told us, is 5. Okay, let's work with this one first. A plus 5, right, because B is 5, plus C is equal to 3C plus 30. And therefore, A would be equal to 2C plus 25. That's our first equation. This one here, A plus 5 plus C is equal to 3A minus 45. And therefore, this becomes C is equal to 2A minus 50. All right, so we got two equations, two variables, we can figure it out. So C is equal to 2A minus 50. 2A we know is right here. 2C plus 25 minus 50. And therefore this is 4C plus 50 minus 50, like that. And this looks like the 50s go, and this becomes 3C is equal to 0. So C is equal to 0. All right. And if C is equal to 0, then from here we'll get 0 is equal to 2A minus 50. And therefore 2A is equal to 50. and A is equal to 25. So we've got it all. A is 25, C is 0, and the question wants their sum, right? A plus B plus C. So A plus B plus C is 25 plus 5 plus 0, which is 30. So 16, the answer is D. Which of the cones below can be formed from a 252-degree sector of a circle of radius 10 by aligning the two straight lines? All right, so try to figure out what they're doing in this question. They're taking the sides right here, this one, and this one, and they're going to join it together. So, glue it together. And when they do, it will form a cone, like the ones that they've shown. They're all the same except for the length that they show for the new circle that's formed as the base right there. Okay, so you kind of understand what's happening in terms of the fold, right? Those two red are going to be joined together. So when these red segments are joined together and they form a cone, where on the cone are those red lines going to join? Look at the choices and tell me. Before I draw it in, think about it. It is going to be here. Right there. That is where the red will join together. So immediately we know that that is going to be 10 because they've labeled it as 10. So the good news is that allows us to eliminate B and D. All right? So the only thing left now is to figure out the radius of the new circle. This new circle right here. This one right here. It's got a radius, and we have to figure that out. Once we do, we can see if it's A, B, or E. A, C, or E. All right, so how do we do that? Well, the original circle right here all the way around, this whole circle right there, that had a circumference of pi times diameter. And diameter is also 2 times the radius. So that circumference was pi times 2 times 10, which is 20 pi. And this is, of course, the circumference of this big one. So that circumference was 20 pi. Now we cut out a lot of it and joined it and made a smaller circle. So what we did is we took 252 degrees of it, which is a portion of the total, and the total is 360 degrees. And that is how much of the circumference remaining. So how do we figure this out? Well, this 252 over 360 is equal to the portion over the total. And the total was 20 pi. Okay, so what I'm doing now is trying to figure out this portion here, just this much. How much is the green? And the green, I'm trying to find with the variable x. I'll put the x in green also. So x is going to be 20 pi, cross multiplying basically 252 divided by 360. And if you do this out in the calculator, you will get 14 pi. Okay, so that means that 14 pi represents the circumference of the new circle. So circumference of the new circle, which is pi d, is 14 pi. Now pi times diameter is pi times 2 times radius, and therefore the pi's cancel and you get 14 is equal to 2r, and therefore r is equal to 7. So the radius of the new smaller circle in this cone is 7. And which one of the choices shows 7? It's this one right here, C. All right, so the answer to number 17 is C. The plane is tiled by congruent squares and congruent pentagons as indicated. The percent of the plane that is enclosed by the pentagons is closest to. All right, so they've given us not much information, so we are just going to have to put in some numbers. They've given us some squares, and they've given us some pentagons. And the pentagons basically will look like this, and we are going to have to label this. So let's just use some simple numbers, 1 and 1. How about that? And therefore we will have to figure out the area using those, and because we're looking at a percent or a ratio, it shouldn't matter what we label them as. So this triangle, if you cut it in half, we'll be able to figure out the length and the height and all that. So if this is a half right here, 1/2, if you look at the diagram carefully, you'll notice that it's really small, but you'll notice that this height right here from there to there is essentially half also, because if you combine two of them, like right there, it will be the same as the side of the square. It's really small, but I hope you're convinced of that. Two of those heights will be the same as the side length. So that means that this little guy in there, this height, is also a half. All right, so now we have everything we need. The total area of the entire grid or plane, whatever, is as follows. First of all, how many of these squares do we have? These squares. If you count them all, you'll see that there are 36 of them. And then how many of these pentagons do we have? If you count them, you'll see that there's 36 of those. So the total area is 36 squares plus 36 pentagons, like that. Okay? And the squares are pretty easy to figure out the area. It's just 1 times 1. The pentagon, we're going to break up into a square and a triangle. So the square part is 1 times 1. And the triangle part is 1/2 base times height. And the base is 1 and the height is 1/2. Like that. So this looks like 36 plus 36, and then that is a quarter. A quarter times 36 is 9. So the total area is 72 plus 9, which is 81. What they're asking for is the percent of the plane that is enclosed by the pentagons. All right? So the pentagons, 36 of them, like that, all over the total, which is 81. This will give you what they're asking for in the question. So again, 36 times 1 times 1 plus 1/2 base times height, all over 81. And this looks like 36 plus, same thing, it was a quarter times 9, which is a quarter times 36, which is 9 over 81. And this looks like 45 over 81. And this is approximately 55.5%. And therefore, the closest to 55.5 is 56. So 18 is D. Pat wants to buy 4 donuts from an ample supply of 3 types of donuts: glazed, chocolate, and powdered. How many different selections are possible? All right, so we'll make a little table. We have glazed, chocolate, and powdered. And the criteria is that the glazed donuts and the chocolate donuts and the powdered donuts must equal 4. Because Pat is going to buy 4 donuts. All right, so we'll make a little table and see how many combinations we get. So the first combination is you have 4 glazed, 0 chocolate, and 0 powdered. The next one is you have 3, 1, and 0, like that. 3, 0, 1. And then you just kind of go down the list. 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2. And then 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 0, 3, 1, 3, 0. And I think that's it for the ones. And then zeros we'll have, see if I can squeeze it in, 0, 1, 3, 0, 3, 1, 0, 2, 2, 0, 4, 0, and 0, 0, 4. And I think that's everything. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 different possible selections. So 19, the answer is D. A regular octagon, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides, is formed by cutting an isosceles right triangle from each of the corners of a square with sides 2,000. What is the length of each side of the octagon? Okay, so let's draw in a square. So here's a square, and then now I have to draw an octagon, and I'm going to do that according to the rules of the question by cutting isosceles right triangles from each of the corners. So I'm going to cut there, and I'm going to cut so like that. That basically becomes an octagon where these are the sides. All right? And what they want is you to figure out the length of each of those sides. So I'll call the length x. And all the sides are x, right? X, x, like that. And we are told anything? Length is 2,000. Okay, so this whole thing from here to here, or maybe I'll do it down here. This whole thing from here to here is 2,000. And that's all they give us. Okay. So I'm going to obviously label these ones on the sides here y and y because they're isosceles right triangles. So that's a right, and isosceles meaning they're both the same, those sides there. And that's pretty much all we get. So we'll have to work with this. All right. So from the top here, this part, we can write that y plus x plus y is equal to 2,000, right? Because it's a square and all the sides are the same. So x plus 2y is 2,000. That gives us our first equation. Our second equation, we're going to get from the fact that all the sides are x, right? Because it's an octagon, 8-sided shape with all sides the same. And then we're going to use this triangle. Pythagorean theorem in the triangle will give you y squared plus y squared is equal to x squared. And we got two variables, two equations, so we should be able to solve it. So this one here is 2y squared is equal to x squared. So that means that y squared is equal to x squared over 2. And if you take the square root of both sides, you'll get x over root 2 is equal to y. And substitute that into there. So we get x plus 2 times y, which is x over root 2, is equal to 2,000. Get a common denominator, root 2 over root 2x plus 2x over root 2 is equal to 2,000. Let's give us a little bit more space here. Let's see here. We got root 2x plus 2x is equal to 2,000 times root 2. Factor out of x and you get root 2 plus 2 is equal to 2,000 times root 2. And then finally, x is equal to 2,000 times root 2 over root 2 plus 2. All right, so 2,000 times root 2 over root 2 plus 2. And that's not one of the answer choices, so most likely what they were doing is they're rationalizing the denominator. So you guys know how to rationalize the denominator, right? multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. All right, so I will multiply top and bottom by the conjugate, and let's see what I get. I get 2,000 times 2 here, minus 4,000 root 2, like that. And then I got 2 minus 2 root 2 plus 2 root 2 minus 4. So this becomes 4,000 minus 4,000 root 2 over minus 2. And then that would be 2,000 root 2 minus 2,000. And if you factor out the 2,000, you'll get root 2 minus 1. So 2,000 times root 2 minus 1. 2,000 times root 2 minus 1, and that's this one right here. So 20, the answer is B.